General Hayden, do you think it's possible that Russian hacking of the US election process went right up to President Putin?
I do. It's the kind of decision in our government, that kind of movement, that kind of covert influence campaign that would never have been undertaken by our government, that kind of action, without approval at the very highest levels. Now, the Russians don't have all those other safeguards with the Attorney General and informing the Duma, all right? But again, when you're out there on the outer edges of executive prerogative, you want the executives okay.
How concerned are you by Donald Trump's, I'm trying to think of the right word, affinity for Vladimir Putin?
There does seem to be an affinity, but you know that's internal. What I see is external, which is a reluctance in all cases to criticize the Russian president. And that does seem troubling to me because I think there's a good evidentiary stack available that suggests you ought to, from time to time, criticize him and his actions. But he just goes out of his way to avoid it.
So he's reluctant to criticize Vladimir Putin, but he's not reluctant to criticize the US intelligence services. And today, again, he cast doubt on their findings.
Yeah.
Why would he not accept what his own intelligence services are going out of their way, risking their lives to prevent?
Good point. So I see two issues here. One's the immediate one you just described. That's a high confidence judgment from the overall community. There's no arguing about this anymore, that the Russians conducted the covert influence campaign at least to mess with our heads. And now there are some judgments that remain to be resolved whether or not they did it to actually affect the outcome of the election. That's pretty bad. That's a big deal. And unfortunately, when the campaign or the transition team talks about it, they talk about it as if it were about them and their legitimacy. It's not about them. It's about us and our political processes. So that's a big problem close in. But Caddy, there's another problem, at least equally big, farther out. And that's a president, and our system gives great authority to the president in the conduct of foreign and security policy. The president-elect seems to have almost infinite confidence in his own intuition and in his own a priori assumptions about the world, and doesn't seem to entertain the possibility they could be affected by his intelligence community, which, after all, is designed to help him.
So are you suggesting then that when the facts don't fit his worldview, Donald Trump ignores the facts?
Well, in this particular case, the facts as marshaled by the intelligence community say the Russians did this. He refuses to say that. That's troubling. More troubling would be if that became the pattern of the administration as we go forward. And look, a lot of the responsibility for this, Caddy, is not just on the president. It's on my old guys. It's our job to get into the head of the chief executive. And it's a lot easier when he makes himself more available. But it doesn't matter. It's our job, the fact guys, to get our view of the world into his head, knowing full well he still gets to make his own decision.
If you are sitting in Moscow watching all of this and the public debate around it, it's hard not to conclude that this is a win for Vladimir Putin, isn't it?
I would put this in the win column as one of the most successful covert action, covert influence programs in the history of covert influence programs. At a minimum, what we now have is the President-elect of the United States condemning, criticizing, refusing to accept, pick your package, the word of the American intelligence community, and siding with the word of the Russian president.
General Hayden, thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you.